What if I told you there's a place in the Game of Thrones universe so terrifying that even the most powerful sorcerers fear to tread there? A city so ancient that not even its own inhabitants know who built it, where the very gold is said to be cursed and the waters glow with an eerie green phosphorescence at night? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're journeying to the farthest reaches of the known world, to a place George R.R. Martin himself has said we may never actually visit in the books or on screen. We're talking about Asshai by the Shadow, arguably the most mysterious and forbidding location in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. This is the city that gave us Melisandre, the birthplace of prophecies that shaped the entire War for the Dawn, and possibly the original home of dragons themselves. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into some seriously dark lore that the show barely scratched the surface of. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Asshai might hold the key to understanding not just the origins of magic in Westeros, but the very nature of the Long Night itself. Let's start with the basics, because even those are absolutely mind-blowing. Asshai sits at the absolute edge of the known world, on the far southeastern coast of Essos, where the Ash River meets the Jade Sea at a point called the Saffron Straits. To put this in perspective, it's so far east that even Qarth, which Daenerys barely managed to reach in Season 2, is considered relatively close to Westeros by comparison. A journey from the free city of Volantis to Asshai and back can take up to 2 years. This isn't just a remote city, it's practically at the end of the world. Now here's where things get really strange. The walls of Asshai are supposedly large enough to contain Volantis, Qarth, King's Landing, and Old Town combined. Think about that for a second. This city has walls that could theoretically hold 4 of the largest, most important cities in the entire series. Yet despite this massive size, Asshai has a population no larger than a decent-sized market town. At night, only 1 building in 10 shows any light. Imagine walking through a city the size of 4 capitals combined, and it's almost completely empty. The streets are silent, the buildings dark, and the few people you do encounter are wearing masks or veils, hiding their faces as they travel alone or in palanquins carried by slaves. But the strangest thing about Asshai isn't its emptiness, it's what it's made of. Every single structure in the city, from the humblest hovel to the grandest palace, is constructed from the same material, a strange, greasy black stone that seems to absorb light itself. This isn't just aesthetically creepy, it has actual physical properties that make the city perpetually dark and gloomy, even during the day. The stone feels oily to the touch, and scholars in the series note that it seems to predate even the ancient Valyrian civilization. Nobody knows who quarried it, who built with it, or where it originally came from. Even the Asshai themselves, when asked about their city's origins, will only say that a city has stood here since the world began and will stand until it ends. They literally have no creation myth, no founding story, nothing. It's as if Asshai simply always existed. If the architecture of Asshai is unsettling, the environment is downright hostile to life itself. The Ash River that runs through the city is one of the most polluted waterways in all of Martin's world. During the day, its waters run black, and at night, they glow with a sickly green phosphorescence. The only fish that live in the ash are blind, deformed creatures, and they're so poisonous that only shadowbinders dare to eat them. Even the fruit that grows in Asshai is dangerous for most people to consume. But here's what really makes Asshai unique from an ecological standpoint. There are no children in the city. None. Not a single child has been born there in living memory. The population is apparently rendered sterile from prolonged exposure to whatever toxic presence emanates from the Ash River or the Shadowlands themselves. Any animals brought to Asshai die soon after arrival, often in a deformed state. The city cannot sustain normal life. So how does Asshai maintain a population at all? Through slavery. The Asshai purchase foreign child slaves and raise them as the next generation. In this way, Asshai functions almost like an institution rather than a natural community, similar to how the Citadel in Old Town passes down knowledge from Meister to Meister across generations. But whereas the Citadel teaches science and recorded history, Asshai teaches magic, dark magic, shadow magic, blood magic, every forbidden art you can imagine. The city has become a place where knowledge, rather than bloodlines, defines continuity. This creates a haunting parallel. Both institutions rely on taking in outsiders and transforming them through education. But the Citadel forges links of chain, while Asshai forges practitioners of the occult. The traders who visit Asshai for its valuable exports, amber, dragon glass, gold, and gems, all speak of the place with a mixture of awe and terror. Even the Dothraki, who fear almost nothing, hold the Asshai in contempt and fear, calling them spawn of shadows. Beyond the already ominous walls of Asshai lies something even more terrifying: the Shadowlands. This is a vast mountainous region that extends northeast from the city, and it's from this proximity that Asshai gets its full name, Asshai, by the shadow. The Shadowlands are described as a place where all learning fails, where the most ancient and forbidden knowledge resides, and where things dwell that even the shadowbinders of Asshai fear to encounter. The geography itself is nightmarish. The mountains are so tall that the valleys and canyons between them only see sunlight for a brief period around noon each day. The rest of the time, they're plunged into a darkness so deep that the region is perpetually shadowed. This is where ghost grass grows, that pale, invasive plant that glows faintly in the darkness and that the Dothraki believe will one day cover the entire world, signaling its end. According to every account, the Shadowlands are barren of all benign life. Instead, twisted creatures lurk there, demons and dragons, and worse, making their lairs in the caves that pockmark the cliff faces of the Mountains of the Morn. And then there's Stygai. Deep in the heart of the Shadowlands lies what's known as a corpse city, the City of Night. Even in a place as forbidding as the Shadowlands, Stygai stands apart. It's described as a haunted, ruined city that sits in the Vale of Shadows, where the Ash River flows through a narrow cleft in the mountains. The river is said to run howling through this passage, and the cliffs on either side are so steep and close together that Stygai sees sunlight for only a few moments at high noon. For the rest of the day and night, it's shrouded in absolute darkness. Here's what's truly remarkable. Even the shadowbinders of Asshai, practitioners of some of the darkest magic in the known world, fear to approach Stygai. They'll travel up the Ash River to a point, conducting their mysterious rituals and studies, but they will not, under any circumstances, tread before the doors of the corpse city. What could possibly be so terrifying that even those who consort with shadows and birth supernatural assassins refuse to go there? The text tells us that twisted creatures, demons and dragons, and things even worse dwell in the caves near Stygai, and that the farther one travels from Asshai up the river, the more hideous and twisted these beings become. Whatever waits at Stygai represents the absolute apex of horror in Martin's world. To understand Asshai's significance to the main story, we need to talk about its most famous export, Melisandre of Asshai, the Red Woman who completely altered the trajectory of the War of the Five Kings and later became instrumental in the battle against the White Walkers. Melisandre represents everything Asshai stands for: mystery, ancient magic, prophecy, and a fundamental otherness that sets her apart from everyone in Westeros. What we know about Melisandre's past is fragmentary, but chilling. She wasn't always Melisandre. As a child, she was a slave named Melanie, known at the auction block as Lot 7. She was sold to the Red Temple, the cult of Arholor, the Lord of Light, at an extremely young age. She recalls knowing nothing but cold, hunger, and chains before the temple took her in. But the temple didn't really free her, it simply transferred her bondage from one form to another. Within those temple walls in Asshai, Melanie was transformed into Melisandre, trained in the dual arts of Red Priestess and Shadowbinder. The training of a Shadowbinder is something the books only hint at, but it's clearly extensive and deeply unsettling. Shadowbinders learn to manipulate darkness itself, to birth creatures of shadow that can kill from a distance, to see visions in flames, and to cast glamours that completely alter their appearance. Melisandre's mastery is so complete that she maintains the illusion of youth for what appears to be centuries. In the show's final season, when she removes her enchanted necklace, we see her true form, an ancient, withered woman who should have died of old age long ago. What makes Melisandre's story so relevant to understanding Asshai is that she represents what the city produces. She's not unique in her abilities, she's simply the most prominent practitioner we meet. Asshai is full of red priests and priestesses, all of whom believe that Daenerys Targaryen is Azor Ahai, reborn, the prophesied savior who will defeat the darkness. The prophecies that drive so much of the story, the prince that was promised, the song of ice and fire, Azor Ahai and Lightbringer, all of these originate from ancient texts kept in Asshai. The city is quite literally the source of the religious and prophetic framework that shapes the entire endgame of the series. Perhaps the most significant mystery surrounding Asshai concerns the origin of dragons themselves. This is where things get really interesting, because there are competing claims about where dragons first came from, and Asshai sits right at the center of the debate. The Valyrians, who famously tamed dragons and used them to conquer most of Essos, claim that dragons originated in their homeland, specifically in the volcanic region called the 14 Flames. Their story is that dragons were the children of fire and smoke, born from the volcanoes themselves, and that the Valyrians discovered them and learned to tame them through magic. But the texts in Asshai tell a different story. According to Asshai histories, impossibly ancient and fragmentary, dragons first came from the Shadowlands, not just near Asshai, but specifically from the Shadow, that dark place where all learning fails. These texts claim that a people so ancient they had no name first tamed dragons in the Shadow and brought them to Valyria, teaching the early Valyrians their arts before vanishing completely from recorded history. Then, these mysterious teachers departed from the annals, leaving no trace except the knowledge they'd imparted. This raises absolutely fascinating questions. Who were these nameless people? Were they the same civilization that built Asshai with that strange black stone? Did they deliberately gift the knowledge of dragon mastery to the Valyrians? Or was it stolen? And most intriguingly, if these people had mastered dragons first, why didn't they use that power to conquer the world themselves, the way the Valyrians later did? What happened to them? Daenerys' dragon eggs, the ones given to her by Illyrio Mopatis as a wedding gift, are said to have come from the Shadowlands beyond Asshai. When Bran has his coma dream in the first book, one of his visions shows him looking east to Asshai, where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. The connection between Asshai and dragons is reinforced over and over, especially in the early books. There are theories that Asshai may still harbor more dragon eggs, possibly the last cache of such eggs in the entire world. If Daenerys or any other Targaryen were seeking to restore dragons to full strength, Asshai would logically be the place to search. Now, we need to talk about one of the most compelling fan theories that connects Asshai to the broader history of the world, the Great Empire of the Dawn. In the far back pages of the World of Ice and Fire, there's a brief mention of an ancient, powerful civilization that once existed in the Far East. This empire, according to the legends preserved by the people of Yi, was ruled by a dynasty of god, emperors who each had eyes of a different gemstone color. The Pearl Emperor, the Jade Emperor, the Tourmaline Emperor, the Onyx Emperor, the Topaz Emperor, the Opal Emperor, and finally, the Amethyst Empress. The story goes that when the Amethyst Empress should have inherited the throne, her younger brother, the Bloodstone Emperor, usurped her rule, cast her down, and took the throne for himself. His reign was marked by practicing dark arts, including the worship of a black stone that fell from the sky, essentially a meteor. Shortly after his usurpation, the world was plunged into darkness. The long night fell across the entire planet. The great empire of the Dawn collapsed into ruin and chaos, eventually splitting into the various nations of the Far East we know today, like Yi and Leng. Here's where it gets really interesting for our understanding of Asshai. Many scholars and theorists believe that Asshai was actually the capital, or at least a major city, of the great empire of the Dawn. The black stone that Asshai is built from could very well be the remnant of that civilization. If the great empire truly was the first to master dragons, as the Asshai texts claim, then Asshai represents the last remaining outpost of that ancient knowledge. The city might be the ruins of the world's first great magical civilization, left in a cursed, contaminated state after whatever catastrophe accompanied the Bloodstone Emperor's reign and the Long Night. This theory connects a lot of dots. It explains why Asshai is so ancient that even its inhabitants don't know its origin. It explains the connection to dragons. It explains why the city seems to be in a perpetually damaged state with its poison river and sterile population. And it potentially links the Long Night itself to events that occurred in or around Asshai. If this theory is correct, then the Shadowlands might literally be shadowed by the aftermath of the magical catastrophe that broke the world 8,000 years ago. One of the most striking things about Asshai is that it's described as a place where nothing is forbidden. Think about what that means in the context of a world where magic is real and often deeply dangerous. In Asshai, you'll find every type of practitioner imaginable: warlocks, wizards, alchemists, moonsingers, red priests, necromancers, aeromancers, pyromancers, blood mages, torturers, inquisitors, poisoners, shapeshifters, worshippers of strange and dark gods. All of them are welcome in Asshai. All of them are free to practice their arts without restraint or censure. This is what makes Asshai fundamentally different from anywhere else in the known world. In Westeros, magic is distrusted and rare. In the free cities, certain forms of magic are tolerated but regulated. But in Asshai, there are no rules. You can conduct whatever obscene rites you wish. You can fornicate with demons if that's your desire. You can delve into blood magic and sacrifice. You can study the darkest arts of necromancy and torture. The city is essentially a haven for anyone seeking to push the boundaries of magical knowledge, regardless of the moral implications. This creates a strange sort of meritocracy of darkness. Asshai doesn't care about your politics, your religion, or your origins. It only cares about your pursuit of arcane knowledge. In a twisted way, this makes it one of the most egalitarian places in the series. Anyone can come to Asshai to learn, as long as they're willing to pay the price. And that price seems to be steep. The very environment of the city appears to drain life, causing sterility, poisoning food and water, slowly corrupting those who stay too long. Yet, people continue to make the journey. Melisandre came from Asshai. Quaithe, the mysterious shadowbinder who advises Daenerys, came from Asshai. Mirri Maz-Duur, the woman who killed Khal Drogo and Daenerys' unborn child using blood magic, learned her arts in Asshai. The city is essentially an exporter of dangerous magical practitioners who go on to shape major events across the world. It's a factory for chaos, producing trained agents of supernatural disruption who fan out across the continents. Here's something that might disappoint you, but it's important context for understanding Asshai's role in the story. George R.R. Martin has said multiple times in interviews and blog posts that we'll probably never actually visit Asshai in the books. At most, we might see it in flashbacks or visions, but he doesn't plan to send any point of view characters there. In fact, in interviews from around 2008 and 2011, he was quite direct about this. When asked if we'd ever see Asshai, his response was basically, probably not, only in flashback and memory, if at all. This might seem strange. Why build up this incredibly mysterious location with such rich, dark lore if we're never going to visit it? But actually, this is very characteristic of Martin's approach to world building. He's a huge fan of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories, where distant, mysterious lands are mentioned but never fully explored, creating a sense that the world extends far beyond what we see on the page. Asshai serves the same purpose. It's the place where the mysterious and the magical come from, the distant source of ancient knowledge and dark power. Think about it this way. If we actually went to Asshai and saw everything firsthand, a lot of the mystery would evaporate. We'd get concrete answers about the Black Stone, about the origin of dragons, about what really happened with the great empire of the Dawn. But by keeping Asshai at a distance, mentioned but never visited, Martin maintains a sense of vast, unknowable depths to his world. There are secrets that remain secrets, mysteries that remain mysterious. This actually makes the world feel bigger and more real. Moreover, from a narrative perspective, Martin seems to have changed his plans regarding Asshai. In the early books, particularly A Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings, Asshai was mentioned much more frequently. And there were hints that Daenerys might actually travel there. Some readers theorized she'd go to Asshai to learn more about dragons and her destiny. But by the time A Dance with Dragons was being written, those references dropped off dramatically. It seems Martin decided that the story didn't need a trip to Asshai, that the information and artifacts from Asshai, the prophecies, the dragon eggs, the practitioners like Melisandre and Quaithe, could come to the characters rather than the characters going there. Even though we may never visit Asshai directly, its influence on the endgame of A Song of Ice and Fire cannot be overstated. Almost everything related to the prophetic and magical side of the story traces back to Asshai in some way. The prophecy of Azor Ahai, which drives Melisandre's entire arc and influences major decisions by Stannis Baratheon, comes from texts in Asshai, the knowledge of how to birth and control dragons, which Daenerys' ancestors used to conquer Westeros and which she herself rediscovered, has roots in Asshai. The shadowbinding arts that Melisandre used to assassinate Renly Baratheon and Courtenay Penrose, fundamentally altering the War of the Five Kings, came from Asshai. When Melisandre looks into the flames and sees visions of the future, she's using techniques developed in Asshai. When she resurrects Jon Snow in the show, though this hasn't happened yet in the books, she's drawing on knowledge that ultimately derives from Asshai's ancient repositories of magical lore, the glass candles that the Meisters possess. Powerful magical artifacts that can be used for communication and far-seeing are made from obsidian that comes from Asshai. Even the dragon glass itself, which proves crucial in fighting the White Walkers, is exported from the Shadowlands in large quantities. There's also the fascinating detail that Bran, when he fully comes into his powers as a three-eyed raven, could potentially travel to Asshai in his visions. He doesn't need to physically go there, he can see through the weirwood trees through time itself. In the books, Bran has a vision where he sees dragons, and some readers interpret this as him glimpsing Asshai. If anyone in the series is going to uncover the secrets of Asshai, it might be Bran through his green seer abilities, allowing Martin to reveal information about the city without actually sending any characters on the years long journey. The Red Priests and Priestesses in Volantis, the ones who believe Daenerys is the prophesied savior, maintain connections to Asshai. If they decided to travel west to support her in the wars to come, they'd bring more of that Asshai knowledge and power with them. The city is essentially the wellspring of magical knowledge in the known world, and even though it's distant, its influence radiates outward through the people it trains and the prophecies it preserves. On a thematic level, Asshai represents something really important in Martin's world building, the cost of pursuing ultimate knowledge. This is a city that has gained mastery over magic, prophecy, and ancient lore, but in doing so has become fundamentally incompatible with normal life. Nothing grows there naturally, no children are born there. The very environment is poisonous. It's as if the pursuit of arcane knowledge has created a space that can contain information and power but cannot sustain life itself. This creates a fascinating parallel with other institutions in the series. The Citadel of the Meisters, for example, also removes its members from normal family life. Meisters forge their chains and give up their family names, becoming devoted to knowledge above all else. But the Citadel still exists within the realm of the natural world. Old Town is a living city with families and children. Asshai takes this concept to an extreme. It's a place where the pursuit of knowledge has become so absolute that life itself cannot exist there naturally. There's also something deeply unsettling about a city that maintains its population only through the regular importation and indoctrination of foreign children. These children are taken from elsewhere, brought to Asshai, and raised in its dark arts until they become Asshai themselves. They're not born into the culture, they're manufactured by it. This gives Asshai a vampiric quality. It must feed on the outside world to sustain itself, consuming the lives and innocence of children to perpetuate its existence. The black stone that makes up the city absorbs light, creating a perfect metaphor. Asshai takes in everything, light, life, innocence, and transforms it into darkness and forbidden knowledge. The city is a black hole of information, pulling things in and changing their fundamental nature. Those who go there seeking knowledge often don't return, and those who do return are fundamentally changed, like Melisandre, like Miri Mazdur, like Quaithe. They become agents of Asshai's influence, spreading its particular brand of dark enlightenment across the world. As we wrap up this deep dive into Asshai, it's worth reflecting on all the questions that remain unanswered, because there are a lot of them. What really happened to cause the long night, and was Asshai at the center of it? Who were the nameless people who first tamed dragons, and are they connected to the builders of the Bloodstone? What waits in the ruins of Stygai that even shadowbinders fear? Are there more dragon eggs hidden somewhere in the Shadowlands? What is the true nature of the shadow itself? Is it a physical phenomenon caused by the mountains, or is it something more supernatural? And perhaps most intriguingly, what truth waits for Daenerys in Asshai? Quaithe keeps telling her that to go forward, she must go back. To reach the light, she must pass beneath the shadow. Is this literal, suggesting that Daenerys needs to journey to Asshai to understand her destiny? Or is it metaphorical, meaning she must confront the darkest aspects of her own nature and history? If she were to go to Asshai, what would she find there? More dragons? Ancient Targaryen secrets? The truth about Azor Ahai and the long night? The beauty of Asshai as a narrative element is that it doesn't need definitive answers to serve its purpose. It exists as a source of mystery, a place where the known world ends and the truly unknown begins. It's the eastern mirror to the lands of always winter in the far north, both representing extremes that bracket the known world. Just as the others come from the frozen waste beyond the wall, many of the magical and prophetic elements of the story emanate from the shadowed lands beyond Asshai. In a series that's fundamentally about the tension between knowledge and ignorance, between light and darkness, between the natural and the supernatural, Asshai represents the point where those tensions become absolute. It's a place where magic is real and powerful, but also corrupt and corrupting. It's where prophecies originate but are also misinterpreted. It's where dragons may have first emerged, but also where the catastrophe of the long night might have begun. Asshai embodies all the ambiguity and moral complexity that makes A Song of Ice and Fire so compelling. So there you have it, the forbidden secrets of Asshai by the Shadow. From its construction of light, absorbing black stone to the corpse city of Stygai that even shadowbinders fear, from Melisandre's dark training to the possible origins of dragons themselves, this mysterious port city at the edge of the world represents everything that makes George R.R. Martin's world building so rich and captivating. We may never see Asshai on the page or on screen, but its influence permeates every major magical and prophetic thread in the story. The city stands as a reminder that some mysteries are better left mysterious, that the unknown can be more powerful than the explained. But it also serves as a very real source of power, knowledge, and danger that continues to shape events across the entire world of ice and fire. What do you think? Would you want to visit Asshai if you had the chance? Or is it better to keep that darkness at a distance? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most mysterious locations in Game of Thrones lore, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content exploring the hidden corners of Westeros and beyond. Until next time, may your flames burn bright and may the shadows never claim you. Thanks for watching.